Welcome back, you here with Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about some tips and tricks you can utilize if you're looking to age in a slightly more effective manner than your average schmuck on the street. We are all aware women come out of the box black-pilled. They instinctively understand the critical importance of maintaining looks, or in their case, painting themselves to hide stuff, using filters, trying to strategically wear clothing that emphasizes or diminishes a particular aspect of their figure. And yet, when you present this information to the well-meaning chum, his reaction is one of three things. Well, that's a liberal. That's so gay, brah. You really need to be listening to more Jordan Peterson. All fine and dandy, but we're not living in an era where you're primarily valued for your combat prowess or simply having resources alone, your capacity to hunt better than everyone else. I know, of course, when the collapse happens, every masculine man who works in trades is going to be desired. But other than that, you might want to pay attention because if you can start this early 20s and it's relatively low cost, you're going to be more than likely much better off when compared to, I would say, 90+% of the male population. And it's not strictly when it comes to dating alone, but also having a sense of self-worth. Self-respect is not simply in relation to others. It's appreciating to some degree the individual looking back at you in the mirror, not just constantly doing domestic violence on yourself. I mean, this is a serious issue. So we begin with supplementation. I'm not going to go too much into diet because that's really a separate video. You can go too far when it comes to vitamins. Now, Andrew Soll suggests a multivitamin every time you eat, but that is pretty considerable in terms of the supply because most of those little containers, 2 is just 1 serving. So I do 1 multivitamin serving a day. I know that's not enough in of itself. I add into that separately vitamin D, which you really should be taking with, I want to say it's K2. Don't quote me on that. I was doing 10,000 IU a day. I've since cut back to around 40,000, although I don't believe the doctors recommended around 2,000 IU or 1,000 daily is nearly enough, especially if you're not working outside or exercising under the sun on a consistent basis. We also have Super B complex, which typically comes, or at least in some cases, has vitamin C, niacin, and biotin, which is good for your hair. We've got magnesium, zinc, and I like to add in beetroot extract. If you can get the beets themselves, make them into a smoothie, that is going to be superior. Otherwise, caplets and the powder is a good option. Nattokinase, CoQ10, and glucosamine, milk thistle, and finally, saw palmetto extract. I will put a link to the specific one I get. Now, saw palmetto is believed to have advantages when it comes to prostate health. And if you're a guy, one of the most likely things that's going to take you out prematurely is your prostate. So as much as you can do to prevent that is positive, but this particular version includes a serving of pumpkin seed oil, which is believed to have benefits for hair as well. So I like to have that all together. I can't quote any of this stuff 100%, but I would rather have as much of a layer of defense as possible instead of just go through life eating goy slop, who cares, be a nihilist in the real traditional, like crude sense, not the actual philosophy of nihilism, which has some merit. Next, we have collagen, not just for Jennifer Aniston. Men also lose it throughout their 20s at a rate of 1% a year, but that's providing you're very physically active and have a decent diet. Collagen is one of the main components that's going to keep you looking young. It's beneficial for your skin, so do not ignore this particular piece of advice. I like the brand Anthony's. It's maybe slightly more expensive than the industrial equivalent, but it is the hydrolyzed, supposedly all natural. I'll throw that into yogurt, cereal, maybe make a smoothie where you have that, or gain protein powder, put in some other spices or whatnot, and a couple of eggs, and it's a solid meal. If you ignore the collagen factor, you might be okay if you just have really good genetics, but more than probably, it's going to come back to haunt you. So skincare is not just, oh, it's gay, oh, it's just for women. It's a very serious factor, and you can tell the guys who have invested in it when they're middle-aged. There's a fundamental difference from those who have actually been proactive and the ones who kept coping with it doesn't matter, it's just for women, oh, it's homosexuals. You do that if you want, but your results will very likely be inferior to others. Then we have other categories of skincare. These are not essential. You can get, I like this Greek Remedy brand, and typically once you buy a particular product, they give you a discount, like 20 or 40% off the next order, which they're not tremendously expensive to begin with, and you can use it sparingly. So again, not absolutely imperative, but your elbows, you get all dried, freaking chalky, do that a couple times a week. Even the bottom of the feet, dried skin peels, pretty disgusting. It's not a crime to be looking at that, again, once in a while, just to prevent you from looking absolutely horrible. You know, if you're Peter Griffin with a whole like foot in the ear stuff, oh, that's dreadful. But you get what I'm saying. And I'll just tack on to that quickly, retinol. They have some products of that nature. You can get them otherwise. If you just want the more generic varieties, you can get them at like a Ross or a Marshall's. They're not terribly expensive. They have vitamin E cream, and you do it twice a day on the face, around the neck region, and then also before you go to sleep. That combined with semi-regular shaving, and I go back and forth on the beard, because without the beard I look a hell of a lot younger. It also saves you, well, in the reverse, it saves you. If you're not shaving, it saves you money, because razors don't last very long in my experience. But they say shaving does over time reduce the appearance of wrinkles. So that's a decision for you to make. I'm not 100% one way or the other, but I do think that retinol is a good investment. If for nothing else, having blurry eyes, bags under the eyes, I've seen a visible difference using this for a few months, because most people don't get enough sleep, or they have excessive amounts of time in front of screens, so you get those little red patches. You can definitely improve your appearance if you take some time. And you can get the cheaper versions, or there's pricier ones, that's up to you. But for most people, it's not going to break the bank as long as you use it in a sparing fashion. And of course, we have to bring up hair. This affects guys in various ways and at different time frames. So for some, it might be teens or 20s. If you're lucky, 30s or 40s. For others, it just never began. But if you have hair, there are some precautionary measures. There's some defensive tactics you can pursue. Preemptive strikes. You don't have to be that complacent. Who cares? I'll be fine. I'm not into vanity. And then they're 32 with a Caesar's laurel wreath. Just take a gander at MGTOW channels. It's almost always a bald cell. Ever made that connection? Very few guys look better without hair. This is just the cold, harsh truth. If you have a symmetrical face, decent jaw, not too bad. But otherwise, it is damaging in most respects. So pay attention, because you have the opportunity to not make the mistakes other people did, or they just didn't have the information. Most of you by the age of 25 at the latest should be looking at some kind of DHT blocker shampoo, which prevents thinning. I like the Peridor brand. It is a little bit pricey, but you can wait on Amazon until it drops with a sale and then stock up. And use it sparingly, because one big mistake guys make is you wash too frequently, which eliminates the oils in the hair, makes it very dry and itchy. You don't have to be doing it all the time. In some cases, it's paired with a conditioner product, which is actually really nice. It does have a solid effect on the hair and its appearance. So that, I think, is a baseline besides the biotin and the pumpkin seed oil that I mentioned earlier. You also have Minoxidil, which does not require a prescription. I believe a 6-month supply of the Kirkland generic brand is about 30 bucks, so definitely not going to break the bank. You apply that twice a day, and it is primarily effective on the top and the back of the scalp. Some people say it's also good for the front. That is a low-cost way you can extend the life of your hair, especially if you see it starting to thin, or if you just want to preempt something to take a glance at. Finally, we get to Finasteride, which does necessitate a pharmacist prescription. Interesting story. So I go to this dermatologist office. By the way, dermatology is the field to get into. I should have done that myself, because a 10-minute consultation, not even with a doctor, with a PA, was 175 bucks. Decisions. I didn't really need it, because in fact the girl, she's looking at me and going, I don't know why you're even asking for this prescription. I mean, you have so much hair. But it's that same dynamic where you have to be doing a preemptive strike and not get caught in a bad situation. Plus, I'm looking at her and I'm staring at her beautiful cheeks, her face, not her ass. Or was it? And you can see how much Botox work she's had done. She's like a late 30s, probably Stacy Light in the past. And I just wondered, if I was a Chad or a Tyrone, would she have thought twice about telling me you don't really need this? Because I believe a lot of women get frustrated when normie men catch on to how the world functions. Instead, you're supposed to be that guy with just a little patch of hair on the back left, and you work hard, make 200K a year, and fund her, but you don't really have alternative options. I say absolutely not. In fact, if I ever reach the point where I don't have hair, I'm getting a hair transplant. Most of you should be looking at that if you have the financial means. I say live your 30s, live your 40s in the best possible manner. If you want to start letting it go a little bit in your 50s, perhaps, but don't just sacrifice yourself on the altar of, oh, who cares, it's over. At least I'm not going to do that. I don't try to push people. You have to follow exactly what I say because ultimately it's your choice. But I believe these are helpful. If you guys know of any different tips, suggestions, I'm all ears. One thing to be aware of when it comes to finasteride, when you start taking it initially, you do shed hair, which is why a lot of people freak out. But over time, it grows back in, or at least that's the idea behind it. So yeah, let me know what you think. Any ideas? This is obviously mutually beneficial. We need to fight a good fight, have self-respect, honor who we are as individuals, and not just go, oh, surrender into the night. No, rage, rage, rage against the dying of the night, or the hairline, whichever you choose.